trade tariffs on Australian barley. They have been dropped by China in a thawing of relations. The barley trade, I believe, was worth around $1.8 billion annually before 2020. So what does this mean for Australian farmers moving forward?
Yeah, this is a welcome development, and just to appreciate that we were able to send boats left and right into other markets with barley. And so, but what it did mean was that they lost much of the premium that they were achieving out of China. So reopening that market without those tariffs is a significant step, and we welcome that with China. And I think the Chinese ambassador here in Canberra has played a pivotal role in that. He's reset the tone of the relationship, and he came here with that intent. It's now important that we continue to work hard, particularly for wine. They lost $1.5 billion overnight, but we haven't been able to find them new markets. So we've got a wine glut. So it's important now that the government works constructively to try and reopen that market as well. There's WTO action pending there as well, and within the next couple of months, we should see hopefully an outcome where we don't need to continue to go down the WTO path, that we can continue to work through dialogue with the Chinese, but it's important the government continues to hold the line in terms of our sovereignty and our democracy and protecting that, and that those conversations with the Chinese are firm but held in the appropriate forums.
And David, what do farmers need to do with the approaching El Nino? Our meteorologists are saying there's a 90% chance of El Nino, warmer, drier conditions than average, particularly across the eastern parts of the country. So the higher demand for barley and other commodities, what are farmers doing in preparation for the potential El Nino?
Yeah, and look, they're making management decisions now, and obviously watching the forecast very closely. Our winter crop in some parts of the country will still be very strong. It'll be down from last year. But not only the weather conditions, but we're also seeing, obviously, the horrors of Ukraine is driving up much of particularly grain prices and kept them higher than what they have been. But here in Australia, we put in place a future drought fund that gives a $100 million dividend every year to make sure that not only the research, investment, but also in terms of those programs that bring broader resilience to the agricultural sector is important. There's also what we have, farm management deposits, where farmers can put away $1.8 million away in a farm management deposit that comes off their income, which reduces their tax. And when it gets dry, they can actually draw down on that. So we've got these measures in place that we put in place from the last drought. So it's important farmers are making those management decisions, and they're doing that now. And particularly when you look at livestock, they're looking at stocking levels as we get into spring to make sure that they have the capacity to carry through.
All right, let's talk nuclear energy. There seems to be a lot of talk in the northern hemisphere. Canada looks like they're implementing a first large-scale nuclear project since the early 1990s. I know you've been wanting this conversation on nuclear energy to be, continuing. What are the issues here? We know that we hear about cost, the laws, nuclear waste, and so forth. But how is the conversation going with nuclear energy for Australia?
Well, there's a lack of leadership, and when I became leader of the Nationals, the first thing I did was ask the Prime Minister for a National Energy Summit to have that mature conversation, to show the leadership from both political sides, to open up that conversation that we can educate the Australian people about the opportunities and the emerging technology. We were in government for 9 years and we couldn't get to a bipartisan approach within even the coalition. The Liberals couldn't get comfort with it. The Nationals have been on a nuclear journey for some time. But to Peter Dutton's credit, he's brought the Liberal Party on that journey, and we're now to a stage where I think we can continue to advance these discussions. And when you've got Chris Bowen running around saying it's the most expensive form of energy and pointing to the Gen Cost report by CSIRO, but yet the CSIRO report is flawed. It's flawed in every sense because they haven't added to renewable energy the 28,000 kilometres of transmission line that's required, the extra transmission lines that'll go into the billions upon billions of dollars, where the new emerging technology, zero emissions technology or small scale modular, could be plugged in where existing coal-fired power stations are, and there's no need for new transmission lines. So we're just saying, let's have a conversation with the truth out there so the Australian people can decide, and we're lagging behind the rest of the world. We've had a nuclear industry here for 70 years at Lucas Heights. Let me tell you, there's houses less than a kilometre away that are selling for $1.3 million. technology's evolved. It can be adopted and adapted here in a safe way in Australia, as we've had for 70 years with Lucas Heights. Let's use some common sense, and the Nationals are prepared to lead that. But Chris Bowen needs to drop the ideology, because unfortunately his reckless race to 82% renewables by 2030 is driving up your costs. And even Net Zero Australia says that'll be $1.5 trillion in costs to the Australian consumers. Someone has to pay for that. We're saying, let's open up the market, let's put the safeguards, let's open up and see what is the cheapest, what's the most affordable, most reliable, while we're reducing emissions. If that comes to nuclear, well and good.
All right, finally, I know you and I, David, have had disagreements constantly about the state of origin, Queensland, New South Wales. However, the Matildas, I'm sure that we would agree that they have to win tomorrow night. I spoke to Paul Wade just before and he said 2-0 against Denmark. It's just amazing, isn't it? An outstanding achievement already by the Matildas, and certainly the world will be watching them play Denmark in the round of 16.
Oh yeah, look, I'm channeling the Queenslander in me, Janie. We're always winning, so I can see. I think the girls will come home with I think
always
2-0
winning
with 2-0.
Always. Come on.
We give you the odd game. We give you the odd game to keep you interested. But look, I've got to say, even without Sam Kerr, we should be proud of these girls. I mean, we've got the world's best player on the sideline, and these girls have done such a great job. And this is one of the biggest World Cups in terms of people watching it as well, going to the stadium. 1.7 million people have watched this game, where the next closest was about 1.1 million. So Australians have embraced this. We should be proud of of the journey we're on. And I think, and bringing Sam back in just strengthens us. But also don't forget that the Diamonds are up for their World Cup final tonight against England. And so we could see the women really outdoing the men in every sense of the word here. We're on a trajectory here with women's sport. We should be proud of where our women have brought us to and going to take us to over the next couple of days.
Yeah, well said. And extra coffees, no doubt, for people watching the early hours of tomorrow and then backing up tomorrow night. But yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it, for women's sport, for up and coming, young kids and so forth, and of course for our country.
Yeah, and I think it's just captured the imagination of young girls around the country, just to go that they can excel and they can be acknowledged in a way that men's sport has. And I think women's sport is really starting to catch the eyeballs, which hopefully will see the money flow into it in an equal way that men have enjoyed for generations. It'd just be great to see women's sport continue to be elevated the way it is. And I think the standard is just as good. It's been amazing to watch. And I think that goes not just for the soccer. You can see that in the cricket. Our cricketers are fantastic. They're netballers, and then our swimmers. So I think Australians are starting to realise that women's sport is a spectacle that actually is of the highest standard that we should all be proud of, and we're going to be world leading hopefully on the 20th of August when the final hits for the Soccer World Cup.
How good is that? And the Opera House is going to be lit up tomorrow. It's going to be a great atmosphere, whether you're at the game, 75,000 people there, or watching at home, or in the events that are being set up outdoors. So yes, Paul Wade, former Socceroos coach, thinks we're going to win 2-0. What do you think?
Yeah, I think 2-0. I think Denmark will be tough, but I think I suspect Sam will probably stay on the bench and they'll inject her as we need her, probably towards the back end. I'm no soccer aficionado, but you just want to make sure you keep her protected all the way through to that 20th of August. But you got to look at what our girls have done so far. They've been pretty good, apart from one patchy performance. They've been pretty solid. So I think we can at least expect 2-0. I think that'll be a fair result.
Yeah.